If you're feeling tempted to hit the ground running this January, this one's for you. We're going to be talking all about how to ease into the new year so we don't crash and burn before the month is even through. Welcome to You Can Do the Things, where we turn good intentions into momentum without burnout. I'm Asia. I'm an ADHDer and momentum coach for ambitious, neurodivergent, multi-passionate folks just like you. Generally, I see two main ways that people start the new year. One is full of energy, really excited and ready to go. And the second is like feeling behind or guilty because they haven't started their intention setting for the year. They haven't even reflected on the year before. And so they're feeling behind before they even begin. Personally, I've always loved this time of year for kind of taking advantage of the collective energy and optimism that is kind of percolating right now while everybody's kind of setting their intentions, creating their goals, and thinking about the possibilities for the year ahead. More and more with myself and with my clients, I notice that excitement and energy quickly turns to overwhelm. So easing into the year is something that is going to be a really helpful practice for all of us. Well, what does it really mean to ease in? When we have that energy, that excitement, and that pressure, we can sometimes go all in. And whether that's out of genuine enthusiasm or just a approach of like, I better do it now because I don't know if I'll do it later, all of that can really lead to exhaustion. It can lead to resentment, and we can essentially like burn up all the dopamine from these projects, these tasks, these goals before we've even had a chance to get into a good rhythm. So easing in allows us to develop routines and systems and allows our intentions to become part of our life. So here are my 5 main tips for easing into the new year. My first tip for easing into the new year is to treat January as a transition period. We've just had over a month of weird schedules, weird days off, lots of disruptions to our routines. And so we need to really just take some time these first couple of weeks to just transition into establishing a good rhythm with our routines, with our systems and our habits, so that we can move forward in a way that is more stable, ultimately, that helps us stay balanced and grounded. So I really want to encourage you to look at January as like a sort of on-ramp, as a runway into the rest of the year. So I just use January as a sort of resettling period. I really just try to focus on doing the things that I know help me feel more balanced and taken care of. I'm not always successful at it, okay, but I do my best, and I find that it is a more friendly and compassionate way for me to get started with the year, and often allows me to have more success with the goals and the intentions that I am setting. My second tip for easing into the new year is really about prioritizing your energy over productivity. Because how do you feel coming out of these kind of like atypical periods? For me, I feel like a mix of kind of bored, so I'm really ready to just get on with things. And I also still feel like a little sluggish because I haven't been in my normal routines. So I do feel a little bit tired or maybe a little bit slow. And this is the winter, which is energetically not usually that great for many of us either. So if that resonates, I just want to encourage you to pace yourself. I know we don't always like that term, but we're not always really a great judge of our own energy. And so if we can practice a more a more measured approach, then we're going to be in a better place for establishing more balance for ourselves and continuing to move forward in a more sustainable way. So we want to make sure that we're not just diving into work and doing all the things that are super taxing, but also making sure that we have space for our creative activities, our hobbies, socializing, these different things that feed our energy and that bring us joy, because this is a way of really honoring our energy and also kind of creating more of a stable energy base. On a day-to-day basis, you might try doing something like a holistic body scan, pause, where you're just kind of checking in with yourself, seeing how you're feeling physically, emotionally, and mentally. So you can do this in between different key activities during your day. It's just a moment, right? But it's just a way to check in with yourself and see where you're at. My third tip for easing into the new year is to set intentions, not resolutions. In the past, I've tended to be a person who starts January with tons of energy, all my goals already like laid out, and I just hit the ground running. But my vibe has definitely changed over the past few years, and now instead of having this kind of like rigid plan, I have a much more gentle and fluid approach, which works so much better for me because I do change my mind a lot. And with a more intention focused approach to the year, I'm able to adapt more easily. When we set intentions, they allow us to be more flexible. They allow us to respond to shifts in priorities and circumstances that we can't always predict at the beginning of the year. Ultimately, intentions allow us to focus on being as opposed to doing, and this is much better for our overall well-being and our mental health. And actually, we're going to be talking more about intention setting and thinking about who and how we want to be in a free workshop I have this week called Crafting Your Narrative and Intentions for 2025. It's going to be free here on YouTube. You can find more details in the description box below. And my fourth tip for easing into the new year is about starting small to build momentum. This really aligns with one of my core teachings or preachings about doing anything at all, which is a really great approach when we're stuck or we're trying just not to do too much. Because we tend to take an all or nothing approach, doing anything at all is a way of finding a little bit more nuance. It helps us establish that momentum and allows us to kind of continually move forward towards the directions that we want to go. I know a lot of us early on in the year, we are interested in making changes into our day-to-day routines or establishing new routines, and sort of a small steps, small wins approach would really be about incorporating one or two small changes, say into your morning or evening routine, as opposed to trying to change everything all at once, because you want to have an approach that allows you to build on itself as opposed to one that sort of tears everything down and attempts to build the whole thing all at once. So for example, maybe you want to journal and you have this vision of you journaling for half an hour every morning, but staring at a blank page when you haven't been journaling at all can be really intimidating. So what about writing one sentence or taking 5 minutes? So as you feel more comfortable and confident, you can more easily move on to writing a few paragraphs or writing for 10 minutes, say. And my fifth tip for easing into the new year is to use the collective energy wisely. I talked about that collective energy before, and it is great. I love it. Being able to kind of just take advantage and swim in all of this really good possibility and optimism that's just kind of floating around. The start of the year feels like this opportunity for a fresh start. You could tap into that for, some social accountability with friends, colleagues, family members. Let's use this kind of collective energy for accountability and for forward movement. Also, let's focus on the flow of it all as opposed to forcing progress, as opposed to creating unreasonable expectations for ourselves. If you're feeling inspired, motivated, or just need some accountability to set your intentions for 2025, I want to invite you to join us this week at the Crafting Your Narrative and Intentions for 2025 here live on YouTube on Thursday, January the 2nd. If you are watching after January the 2nd, you'll be able to catch the recording in the playlist I have that is workshop recordings. And I want to just take a minute to address the common feeling of being behind. Logically, we know we're on our own timeline, but our brains move so fast that we have this inherent impatience. And so often we feel behind no matter what we do, no matter how much we do. And so I just want to remind you that this reflection process, this intention setting process, all of these things can happen at any time. So it doesn't have to be now if now doesn't feel right. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. This is a brand new channel and your support is so meaningful to me, and it will really help the channel grow and get these good tips out to more people. So remember, January doesn't have to be a sprint. Go at your own pace. Take small steps and you will build momentum in a way that is actually sustaining and empowering and confidence building. Stay tuned over the next couple of weeks because I'm going to be putting out more videos about how we can get a good and thoughtful start to 2025. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'd love to hear what's one small way that you are easing into 2025. So feel free to drop those in the comments. And if there's any other tips that you have that you use and find really helpful, I'd love to hear about that as well. So feel free to share those in the comments too. Thanks again, and stay curious, take good care of yourself, and remember, you can do the things.